I'd like to invite everybody that's been involved in open government, in the public sector, in the private sector, in academia, people who have projects together, who have applications, who have an interest in open government, to join a dialogue that will have an online component and an in-person component on the standards, the markets, the architectures that will be necessary to enable broad-scale participation in the open government of the future. The most important session at the Open Gov Workshop at MIT will be the session that will be co-led by David Colarusso of Community Counts, where we examine the existing projects and applications that are enabling bubble-up questions. So we'll take a look at MySpace Impact. We'll take a look at PBS Kids Speak Out. We'll take a look at Dig Dialogue. We'll take a look at others. And most importantly, we hope to have participation by change.gov to look at how Google Moderator is now being used to power Open for Questions. The idea is to begin a conversation about how can we work together, and ultimately what kind of ecology would best exist where we can have open standards, an open market, and a fair playing field. We'll also host a dialogue on government in the information age and the transformative potential of open government technologies, the kind that Obama used on the campaign, for the everyday administration of public sector transactions with e-citizens. We'll also have a special working session with our friends from state governments to look at how open government can be used at the state level, how it can integrate between local, state, and federal, and how it is, specifically, we could use Big Dialogue and other bubble-up software with administrations like Governor Patrick in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, Governor Schwarzenegger in Sacramento, California. We'll have a dialogue on how OpenGov technologies can enable participation by individuals in the health reform debates and decision-making processes that are happening right now, certainly in the government, with things like change.gov's new outreach to host community discussions on healthcare, but also within industry with organizations like Mass Health Data Consortium, who host and convene dialogues among private sector organizations all the time, having the same conversation, reforming healthcare. Now, at last, we have the ability to directly support and reflect the people's voice in this important transformative policy-making discussion of our generation. Using OpenGov technologies, we can do it. At the workshop, we'll explore how and hopefully begin a dialogue about using those dialogues to find new efficiencies, cost savings, and to increase personalization and service quality, increase health outcomes, increase a marketplace for services. How can we use these same kinds of technologies to enable and to empower consumers, patients, citizens, e-citizens of an integrated set of information infrastructures of the immediate future, participating, of course, in civic online transactions, but also in electronic patient records and in electronic provision of healthcare of the future. And for that matter, participating, of course, directly in open government by giving feedback to the government about healthcare policy reform and maybe even feedback about how the programs are going so we can get user-centered in public administration. What kind of governance is going to be needed to support open government of the future? Governance is the system of ownership and control and decision-making and the interlocking rights and responsibilities, ultimately, of all the stakeholders within the ecology of that which is being governed. So in this case, the ecology includes people certainly in government. It also includes people across federal and state governments. It includes people in the private sector, like the vendors that are enabling the electronic infrastructures. It involves citizens who are participants, certainly. It involves other stakeholders as well, industry by industry and in other ways. So the governance would have to include in some meaningful way methods for the stakeholders to come to agreement on things like technical standards, the legal infrastructure, how the markets will function so that we encourage open markets and open competition and innovation. Some of the topics that we'll explore include other working models such as the EBT Council of NACHA and other public sector, private sector models of collaboration that work, where there's stakeholder participation and decision making. We'll also take a look at different ways to structure ownership and control of interlocking directorates between the standard setting community, government sector, trade associations potentially, foundations representing citizens and other stakeholders. We'll take a look at the legal analysis of how these things would have to look so that they would make sense between the different constituencies and the legal paradigms that apply. And finally, we'll take a closer look at how it is currently these open government is working, and just do a quick sketch of the existing governance, which is mostly arm's length and fractured, and start to speculate about how in the future more of a cogent market that works for the people could evolve and the governance that would be needed for that. We're especially pleased about the big dialogue event within the Open Gov Workshop at MIT, where we'll be screening the top questions for President-elect Obama that will have been filtered up within Big Dialogue, and we'll also be taking a look at the top questions by kids from our partner PBS Kids Speak Out. We'll talk a little bit in a panel format about the Big Dialogue project and how we put it together, and PBS Kids will lead a conversation about PBS Kids Speak Out project and how that's structured in more of a curated fashion, and we'll look at the responses that we will have gotten by that point from the incoming administration, by the transition team. Hopefully, we'll have at least one video response by President-elect Obama himself. We'll show not only the top questions and whatever responses we have by the time of the workshop, but also have an opportunity potentially for the people that ask those questions to participate either via Skype on video or another video opportunity, or maybe even in person on the MIT campus. In addition to that, there'll be an opportunity to have an online discussion and to continue the dialogue forward right through Inauguration Day at bigdialogue.org. We'll also have a design workshop where we'll take a closer look at questions of user interface, user experience, applicable standards, best practices that will hopefully give a few more tools for people looking to create these civic engagement and open government experiences on their own. We'll have another interesting set of dialogues for the gearheads out there, the geeks if you will, on the quantitative questions around open government and mass participation. So questions like demographics, statistics, advanced analytics on sociological kinds of metrics. These are questions which are really underspecified and underexplored right now, and we've got a nice team together that is going to be able to help us to begin to frame those questions and start to look at how we can introduce best practices and the right kinds of algorithms and other techniques from those sciences so that we can understand, first of all, when representation in fact is fair and it's, frankly up to snuff for formal processes, and secondly, how it is we can work with the statistics community to maybe make it even a little more fair than what we currently have, so that with methods like statistical oversampling and other kinds of mathematical techniques, we can begin to get a better sense of accurately, what is on the mind of the people and how is it that they would like a certain policy matter to go.